G'day and welcome back to the channel. My name's Bruce Simpson and I do these videos from time to time talking about the latest in drone news. And if that's what interests you, then subscribe and you won't miss any. Right, getting on with it. Usual face palms, usual unbelievables. I want to start with the media beat up on drones. This is nothing new. This has been happening for so long, but it seems to be getting worse. I found a report which says that the Air Services Australia, which is like CAA, so it's an air traffic control side of things, they've expressed very real concern that drones will be used for criminal purposes, including terror-related uses. Yes, why write about it? So I thought, okay, yeah, just one little publication. But then Forbes, on the 14th of August, Forbes Magazine wrote a story. In fact, what's his name? Cesar Cerrudo. Cesar Cerrudo. Keep an eye on that name, this guy. Oh, anyway, he wrote a story which I've linked to all these in the description. So if you want to read them yourself, go and have a look. And he says, a lack of regulation could lead to the weaponization of drones. Oh my goodness, seriously. And my thing is, well, terrorists don't obey the regulations, so what difference will regulations make? And I'd say none, but we know that. And then he says, you know, it's a good story. When you read a media story, you know it's a really good story if instead of focusing on facts, they use a phrase, and this is straight from the Forbes story, imagine this, which is basically a way of saying, this isn't true. You have to imagine it because it hasn't happened and it probably won't happen. Just imagine it. Really seriously drawing extremely long bows over at Forbes. Anyway, he says, this is what could happen. For example, a drone with high travel speeds could dive bomb pedestrians, inflicting serious injuries. And he says, goes on to say that delivery drones could be hijacked to do this, hacked in the air to crash into pedestrians and cause them a great deal of injury. Well, my response is, okay, little drone, 1.5 ton car. We have a lot of self-driving vehicles, Teslas, a lot of them got the self-drive in there now, you know, the autopilot thing, and it's going to become very, very commonplace. Why is Forbes not concerned about the fact that instead of people hijacking a 5 kilogram drone and crashing it into someone could hijack a 1.5 ton automated delivery vehicle and crash it into someone? That was more likely to cause, in fact, how likely is it to cause injury if you crash a drone into someone? Well, I've got made some notes because I'm old and I forget. As you all know, if you watch regularly, you know I'm old and I forget. So here we go. A university study, University of Alabama, I think it was, they did a study to see what would happen if you crashed a drone into someone's head. And I'll link to it again in the description. And they found not a lot. The likelihood of killing someone by flying a drone to the head is very, very low. It's a low risk in terms of fatalities, a low risk thing. So we're pretty safe. If people fly drones into your head, you can get cuts and abrasions and lacerations, but you're unlikely to get killed. So Forbes, I think, again, media hysteria. And this media hysteria has got pretty bad. There was a power station demolished in the UK a couple of weeks ago. They blew the tower up, you know. And as a result of that, the power went out over a fairly large section of the country. And you can see pylons were sparking and things. I'll put a link to the story. And the first headline I read was that a drone had probably flown into the power lines. Of course, on further investigation, it was nothing of the kind. It was the shockwave from the collapse had blown 2 power lines together, spark, and a power pylon caught on fire. But how did drones get involved in this? If anything bad goes wrong, the media says, well, must have been drones. Must have been drones because we all know they're evil. They're going to be weaponized. But let's go back to that Forbes article. That was on the 14th of August. Forbes warned of the risk of weaponization after the Australian Air Services had also warned of the risk of weaponization and people doing bad things with drones. And so then on the 22nd of August, guess what happened? The FAA posted a bulletin notifying people that they must not weaponize their drones. Seriously, someone in the FAA is being influenced by the media. They're reading these stories that I've been pointing to and go, ooh, we didn't know about this. We better warn people, don't weaponize your drones. Seriously? I think all I've seen is someone put a pistol on a drone, and I think there's been a flamethrower, which we saw, and I think an airball, paintball gun, and a chainsaw. That's all we've seen on drones. How many people have been killed by these weapons? Absolutely none. 0. The big number that's associated with recreational drone flying. So seriously, this is like what's going on here. If the FAA reads a story on Forbes and thinks, oh, we'd better issue a warning because people could weaponize their drones, and you get a $25,000 fine if you weaponize your drone, apparently. Apparently, $25,000 fine if you do that. So I think they've been watching that Slaughterbot thing as well. So there you go. The media, they're still trying to rip us a new one at every opportunity. But I say, let the bad actors weaponize their drones. Let them do it, because I read just today a story on The Sun, I think it was. Honestly, this is a real facepalm moment, okay? A bad actor decided to use a drone, looks like a Phantom or something, by strapping some plastic explosive to it and flying it to a location where his enemy was located and detonating it, right? Sounds pretty foolproof, doesn't it? But you know what happened? And this is why we should let these people weaponize their drones. The drone got halfway there, and because he hadn't charged the battery, you know what happens with a Phantom when the battery gets low? It returned to home and blew up the guy that put the plastic explosive on the drone in the first place. It annihilated the bad actor. He blew himself up. Seriously, so if they all do that, we'll be better off. Weaponize your drones, boys. We don't need you. Oh, seriously. And I mean, this shows that, you know, we're getting this, oh, weaponized drones are going to be a major problem. No, these people are too stupid to even work out how to use them. So what threat do they pose to anybody except themselves? Honestly, seriously, we've had drones for over a decade, and the death toll associated with the recreational use of multi-rotor drones remains at 0. However, good segue, the death toll associated with general aviation in the USA is that number. And I've written it down because I forget. 347 people have died as a result of general aviation activities in the United States of America. That's flying manned aircraft, not commercially, just recreationally. 347 deaths, okay? That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people have died as a result of it. Of course, this pales into insignificance if you compare it to the road traffic toll, which is 30,000 people die as a result of using cars every year in the USA. Let me remind you of the death toll associated with recreational drone use again, because you've probably forgotten. It's a really hard number to remember. So we've got some big problems out there, big problems claiming human lives. So we've got to look now at how people spend their money, how these government agencies spend their money. Gary Mortimer from SOAS News did an Official Information Act request of the police in the UK after the Gatwick incident, which was allegedly a drone incident, but as I think most of us know, it was nothing of the kind. And apparently the British police, the investigation into that drone incident has cost almost £900,000. That's a lot of money. If you put it into New Zealand pesos, there's not enough digits in the world to make that number. 900,000 quid to investigate something, and the only outcome was they arrested 2 people who weren't even remotely connected with it. So, and it's all gone nowhere. So people are spending, and they've spent millions of pounds now on equipping airports with anti-drone technology to scare away the drones that weren't there. And you've got to say, well, could this money be better spent? I think it could be, because imagine if they, in America, they're spending how much money on creating new drone regulations, and you're going to have to sit an exam just to fly your drone, you've got to register your drone, and there's all this extra costs and complexity, and there's enforcement costs and things, all this stuff. Yet you're letting 347 people a year die in the manned aviation sector. Well, why don't you address the problem, the real problem that's claiming lives, the general aviation? They're the problem. They're the ones that are killing themselves. Recreational drone users are killing neither themselves nor other people. So why are you so fixated on them? Go and fix the problems, because I looked on the FAA website, and in the top 10 reasons why people kill themselves in airplanes are mid-air collisions with other manned aircraft and flying too low. Well, excuse me, those are the things that also bring them, we've heard about the threat of drones hitting aircraft. Well, no, it's the threat of manned aircraft hitting other manned aircraft that's the real danger in our skies. And low altitude, well, if they're going to kill themselves flying low altitude without hitting drones, can they really complain if a drone does get in the way? And speaking of a drone getting in the way of a legitimate drone flight getting in the way of manned aircraft, I read a report from Canada. Where did I put it here? I should do this better. Jump cut. Yes, in Canada, a drone operator reported an incident where a helicopter, the drone operator had got all his consents and things from Transport Canada, and he had all his licenses. He was all good to go, totally legal. He was flying his drone, and out of nowhere came a manned helicopter flying very low. It flew under his drone. That's how low it was. And so he reported the incident to the authorities, and the authorities said, well, we might investigate it if it's got any merit. And it was if you'd hit that helicopter, it'd still be your fault because you're flying a drone and drones must always give way. But I can see that, I mean, you might think, yeah, that sounds fair, but trust me, I've been there. I've been flying drones around this area here, and we were not flying drones at the time. We'd stopped to have a bit of a chat, sitting under some trees, and out of nowhere, honestly, out of nowhere, came a helicopter, flew right across at almost tree height, blew all the leaves and everything up, straight across our heads. We didn't even hear it coming because it was flying so low, and this was a treed area. We're flying mini quads under the trees. If we'd popped up above the tree cover just as the helicopter went past because we couldn't hear it, and the helicopter had hit the drone, it would be our fault, even though the helicopter was operating well below the 500-foot minimum, and in a way that was not very safe. But no, it's always the responsibility of the drone operator to give way to manned aircraft, which kind of brings into question this whole push now. EASA and the FAA and governments around the world want us to put transponders in our drones. They want us to put a GPS and a transponder in something like this, right? That's for safety, they say. But hang on a minute. Why would we do that? Because it's not the aircraft, it's not a manned aircraft's job to get out of the way of drones. The law says the drone's got to get out of the way of the manned aircraft. So surely the transponders should be going in the manned aircraft so we know where they are and we can keep out of their way, not the other way around. So I'd say, don't burden us with transponders, with GPS extra weight and hassle and cost and expense. Make sure that every manned aircraft has a transponder, and then we'll get the technology we need to make sure that we're not going to hit them, which is some kind of Flight Radar 24 or something on your cell phone. Whatever it is, we'll have that technology, and let the main cost burden be borne by manned aviation, who are the ones who've got skin in the game, who are the ones, killing themselves at a rate of 347 a year, often due to low flying. There you go. And here in New Zealand, low flying is also a major killer in the GA space. But it's not just manned aircraft that are taking lives. I read this morning that a girl of 7-year-old girl in India was killed by a kite. There you go. Not regulating kites, are we? But the death toll for recreational multi-rotor use and the death toll for kite use is, I don't know, I'm not going to look it up, but it's a lot higher. But kites are not regulated in the same way. You don't have to register your kite. You don't have to sit an exam to prove you can fly a kite, but kites kill people. Recreational multi-rotor drones don't kill people. This is ridiculous. This is unbelievable. And it's becoming very obvious. I've got to say, it's becoming very obvious that this whole regulation thing, this over-regulation thing we're facing is not so much to do with safety. We've proven these things are safe. Over 10 years, we've proven drones are safe. Over nearly a century, maybe more than a century, we've proven that model aircraft are pretty safe. They're one of the safest pastimes you can have. So we don't have to prove we're safe. We've already done it. So why are you picking on us? Well, it's because, as we know, I'm preaching to the choir here, but hopefully there's a regulator out there who has spilt his coffee and is watching YouTube while his trousers dry. No, she's more likely to be a politician. Let's be honest, the regulators haven't been too bad. The politicians, maybe New Zealand's Minister for Drones, has just spilt coffee on his trousers and he's waiting for it to dry, so he's watching my channel and he's going to watch this. I would say to him, well, it's not safety. It's not safety at all, because if safety was your prime concern, if your concern as a government was saving innocent lives, you'd be dealing with the death toll associated with general aviation. You'd be dealing with the death toll associated with drivers on the roads, with electric scooters, with kites, but not drones, because they don't kill anybody, okay? So, it's all about money. And he who has the most money, or the best, there's an old saying, he who pays the piper calls the tune. And these large corporations, Google, Amazon, DHL, they've got enough money to influence governments. So, oh yes, if we're allowed to deliver with drones, we can create jobs, we can put money into your economy, blah, blah. And of course politicians, oh yes, please, bouncing up and down like little puppy dogs. Money, money, money. That's what they're doing. So they're getting away with just about everything. A good example is, I think the SpaceX are about to launch a craft, and the police have gone around the town near the launch site and said, you better all vacate your houses, because if something goes wrong and there's an explosion, the shockwave could shatter all your windows, and if you're inside, you could get lacerated with shards of broken glass. And I'm thinking, what? Are they allowed to do this? Are SpaceX allowed to do something that could endanger people's lives to that degree? Yet in America, you can't fly your drone in your own backyard unless you've registered and done all the paperwork. Excuse me, how can you possibly allow a corporation, just because they've got mega bucks, to endanger people's lives? That's okay, but you can't fly a drone because, well, you know, it's only a matter of time. Oh, it shows the huge, what would you call it? I don't know what you'd call it. It's just, it's beyond description. The blatancy, the obviousness that this is all about the money, it's not about the safety. It is, And I see on my notes here again, talking about aviation and the risks, there was a mid-air collision in Mallorca, the island of Mallorca, mid-air collision between a microlight and a helicopter today, or just recently, just the last couple of days, and 7 people died. 7 people died. There are so many collisions between fixed-wing aircraft and helicopters, and people die. As I say, it's one of the top 10 causes of death in the USA for pilots and passengers on general aviation. So again, why don't these craft have to have transponders in the way our drones will? If the microlight had to have a transponder and the helicopter had to have a transponder, they would have known about each other and wouldn't have crashed. But the way things are going, we will have to have the transponders even though we don't pose the threat, and the manned aircraft won't. If they're operating in uncontrolled airspace, go for it. It's like, no, unacceptable. And finally, to Australia. No, this isn't the video about your rules. It's just I noticed that an Australian was fined 7,500 Australian dollars. That's nearly $6 American for breaking the rules. Now, there's not a lot of information on this. I couldn't get any real good detail, so I don't know if what he was doing was unsafe or simply a breach of the regulations, because it's a huge difference. Anyway, initially he got slapped with a fine by CAS. I think it was $1,500 fine for flying within 30 metres of people and flying at night. Now, is that safe? Is that not safe? As I say, I don't have the info. In some cases, it would be safe. If you're flying, within 30 metres of people, but you knew what you're doing and you weren't flying actually over people and everything was sort of, as a commercial operator would do. If you're a commercial operator, you can fly over people because you've paid enough money for that privilege and you're supposed to have all these safety plans and high-vis jackets and orange cones and, I don't know, attack dogs to keep people away, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, if you pay the right money, you can do whatever you like. But this guy, of course, I don't think he was a professional. I don't think he had the necessary commercial certification. So he was flying his drone within 30 metres of people. If he was flying over their heads, then he needs a good kick up the arse, and I think the fine was deserved. However, if he wasn't, but flying at night, this is a really interesting thing. Is it unsafe to fly a drone at night? Well, I don't think it's unsafe. Have you seen, most drones have got pretty bright LEDs on them. In fact, they're probably more visible to the public on the ground below and to aircraft in the skies who will be flying instrument-rated flights at night, and therefore they shouldn't be really close to the ground at all unless they're taken off for landing. So if this guy was flying away from an airfield, I see no reason why he couldn't fly his drone at night safely, because he's not going to bang into an aeroplane if he's below 400 feet. And if he does, well, as I say, pilots create their own luck and their own fate if they dare to break the rules themselves. But there you go. So he got the $1,500 fine from CAS and he said, no, I'm not having this. I'll go to court. So he went to court and the judge said, you should have paid the fine. Now you're going to pay $7,500. And this brings up the issue of law and justice, which is a little hobby horse of mine. The law is pretty simple. The politicians write laws, they get put into effect. And if you break the law, it's pretty obvious. If the law says you may not fly a drone at night and you fly it at night, you've broken the law. Pretty straightforward, black and white, no problems there. However, courts shouldn't be in the business of just deciding whether the law's been broken. They are in the business of dispensing justice. Justice, it's a big word that's been forgotten, I think, by a lot of politicians and a lot of judges, because justice is completely different to law. Okay, now let's assume this guy had been flying totally safely, hadn't been endangering anybody, but he'd broken the regulations. In which case, by all means, convict him. If it goes to court, convict him of breaking the regulation by flying too close to people, convict him of breaking the regulation by flying at night. But there's two parts to a judge's job. The first part is to determine whether the law has been broken and issue a conviction as a result if it has. The second part is to dispense some kind of punishment, some censure for breaking the law. And this is where justice comes in. Now, if you've done something where you haven't endangered anybody, but you've technically broken the rules, then there's grounds for conviction and discharge. And what that means is that, okay, the courts acknowledge you broke the law, but we're not going to punish you because what you did doesn't merit punishment. Or what you did was of such low danger to anyone, we're going to give you a token punishment, a $50 fine because you didn't endanger anybody, but you need to be reminded to follow the rules. But in this case, they hit him with nearly the full force of the law and whacked him with a $7,500 fine, which may not have been just. Why would a judge do that? Why would a judge not issue justice but simply, slap him with a big fine stick? Well, that goes right back to how I started this report. And that is, just like the FAA, just like everybody else, judges read newspapers. Judges watch television and the media is vilifying us. That judge might have thought, oh, this lucky thousands weren't killed with this drone that broke the rules. Maybe he thought if that drone had plunged into the crowd, there would have been blood everywhere and dozens of people would have died. Maybe the judge thought if he flew at night, then it would almost have certainly hit an airliner and hundreds would have plummeted to their death in the streets below. Honestly, that's probably what the judge was thinking because the media is screwing us totally into the ground through their misinformation, their fake news, they're unbelievable. And I've given you the evidence in this video today. So, as I say, most of the time I'm preaching to the converted. Most of the people who watch these videos have a same kind of mindset as me, but I'm hoping that if you share these videos on your social media, on your Bookface and on your Twitter or whatever it is, all this stuff that Instagram, is that a thing? I don't know. I'm not into social media except YouTube. But if you share this video, if you link to it, so other people, hopefully the media might get a clue. It's not likely, but it could happen. We've got to do everything we can. So point them at my videos so that they can see the reality of the situation and just how badly they're performing, how poorly they are representing the issues by misrepresenting those issues. There you go. Thanks, folks. And again, I can say I'm pleased to announce at the end of this video that the death from the recreational use of multi-rotor drones remains at 0. Long may it do so. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.